Herzlich willkommen zu Bitcoin Insights mit Philipp. In diesem Podcast vertiefe ich die Themen meines wöchentlichen Bitcoin Insights Newsletters. Hello everybody. Hello Knut. Nice to have you here. The block time is 861,658 and the topic of this edition is this year. If you're watching on YouTube, it's called Bitcoin 1 divided by Clown World. And today I would like to welcome Knut Svanholm, who I first met in person on the Baltic Honeybadger in 2019. Knut, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Yeah, we go way back.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just read it like it's here in the front, and here on the side it says the inverse of Clown World.
Same thing.
Yes, yeah, same thing, just the mathematical correct term probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, as I mentioned, we obviously met on a Bitcoin only event, and that was for me the first time on the Honeybadger. I don't know, maybe it was your first time there as well, or have you been to the...
Yeah, 2019 was my first Honeybadger, and it's sort of my first real hardcore Bitcoin conference. I had been to like blockchain conferences before that, but I'd rather forget them. So in 2019, I brought 50 copies of my fairly newly released book, Bitcoin Sovereignty Through Mathematics, in a bag in my hand luggage, and I gave away half of it and sold half of it, and been doing Bitcoin stuff ever since.
Perfect. I was one of the 25 people who bought it with a signature. It's right over there.
Oh, nice.
And I read the other books who followed after that too. And for me, it was actually the same. Like, it was my first Bitcoin only conference. And the thing is, I didn't knew it. I didn't knew it was a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist conference. And I was sitting in a plane, and next to me was sitting Daniel Wingen, the founder of 21. And then I pitched him my idea for my nonprofit. And then he said, yeah, it's a nice idea, but if you mention that you want to give donations through blockchain or cryptocurrencies to Africa, just say Bitcoin, don't say Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency. So that was a good advice for that conference. But before we go into the actual talk, Knut, please introduce yourself first.
Yeah, well, how long of a story do you want? Well, I'm Knut Svanholm. I wrote a couple of books about Bitcoin. I've been, traveling the world, talking about Bitcoin for the last at least 3 years, I would say. 5 years, but COVID or the lockdowns came in the way of the first few. I make Bitcoin content, write books. I am the host of the Bitcoin Infinity show, together with my co-author here, Luke DeWolf, who helped me write the latest book. And I try to have fun and do stuff. That's what I do nowadays. My background is in shipping. I used to be a sea captain, and I used to work in at a shipping company. So my last position in Fiat life was as an HR manager for a shipping company, which I was for a short while. But 3 years ago, I decided to go full time with my passion, which is writing and talking about Bitcoin. So I've been doing that ever since.
Perfect. And that's quite well. I was last year and this year on Bitcoin Prague, and actually I bought the shirt here, Satoshi Nakamoto at the Bitcoin Prague last year. It was a nice show. You, I think, was on the guitar, and Giacomo was there, and a lot of other Bitcoiners were singing and playing the drums or whatever. And actually, you signed this shirt, I think, together with Giacomo. And it was a really nice party. And I think you're doing that probably at every Bitcoin conference or most of it, or only at Bitcoin Prague.
No, this is a funny thing because the Satoshi Nakamoto thing sort of happened by chance in for the first time in Mexico back in 2021, and it was just a bunch of Bitcoiners who borrowed the. There was a band already playing at the place we were at, and when they took a break, we sort of just borrowed their instruments, and everyone was happily surprised that it sounded fairly good. So we realized that why don't we do this more often? And we have this guy Muzz, Mike Jarmus, who's used to be a professional rock band manager, and he's sort of pulling the strings there and making it all happen and making there be a Satoshi Nakamoto like open stage at all of these conferences. So far we've been having them in Prague and Riga and Miami, and I know they've had Nakamotos in El Salvador and all sorts of places also. So yeah, it's I'm just thrilled every time it happens because it's such a weird thing that became a thing. We're doing the next one now in Amsterdam. I think there's one in Amsterdam and then one in Lugano. So that'll be really fun.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice. So we will see each other at Amsterdam. I will be a keynote speaker too on the second day, 10th of October. And for all of the listeners, if you don't have your ticket yet, you can buy it and get a discount with BTC minus Insights. I will tag it in the show notes.
You can also get a discount with the code Infinity.
choose the one you prefer.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Honeybadger, and we met this year there too. It was just like, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, Baltic Honeybadger 2024. How did you like it?
This year's one, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I think Baltic Honeybadger keeps getting better and better each year, and it was pretty darn good the first year I was there too. Like they started back in 2018, I believe, and so we went to the second one. Like so, we're pretty early in the development of that thing, but I think it just keeps getting better. It's the conference in the world with the highest signal to noise ratio, in my opinion. Like the people there are based and they know what they're talking about. Like, and there are no shitcoiners anywhere. So I really like it, especially this year when they had the Nostr thing, the Nostr conference or unconference just before the regular conference. That was a lot of fun, and you learn quite a lot. And I'm definitely more Nostr pilled now than I was before the conference. So we're doing everything Nostr first now with our pod and our other content as well. We try to release everything a day in advance on Nostr, so you get sort of a premium for being on Nostr in terms of our content, and plan to do that in the future too. No plans of like quitting Twitter or anything like that, but from now on it's Nostr first.
Yeah, actually, it's totally the same for me. I don't know the color. I always say I got orange pilled for Nostr, but they have their own color. Purple pilled, okay. I got purple pilled. And Jack Dorsey did a really great job because he financed the conference and everything there. So I think, and he's, by the way, financing Primal. And his former boss is the CEO of Primal. I talked a lot to him, and that's the good thing with Nostr right now.
Miljan?
Yeah. No, sorry. Not Primal. I am talking about Nos.
Nos?
The app.
Okay.
So Primal is from me, John. Mm-hmm. And Nos is from Rebel. And Nos is financed by Jack Dorsey because Rebel was the former boss of Jack Dorsey. And he's paying like everything for Nos. And because right now it's still very, very early at Nostr. And that's the great thing. I wrote about it in my newsletter that it's the same like imagine you are in the year 2010 and you would be able to talk to Satoshi Nakamoto. Right now you have the same time frame with Nostr, and you can easily write to the CEOs of those small companies right now, which will be the next Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And I think that's a really interesting time. I'm not Nostr first, so I do everything simultaneously. And I will not leave Twitter for the next month. But I think Nostr is the future. And the Honeybadger was, yes, better in terms of professionalism. But like right now, still, it's like a big meetup, right? It's a big meetup from Bitcoiners in a highly professional way, different than Bitcoin Prague, for example. But in 2019, it was like a even smaller meetup with like, it was much more like family style, I would say. And now it's more, it's getting a bit more in the corporate style because you have a lot of VC funded Bitcoin companies there, which is fine too. And it's still my most liked Bitcoin only conference, I would say.
Yeah,
You talked about
something special about it. There is something special about it.
Yeah, it's like the atmosphere there is totally different than at other conferences.
Yeah.
And you talked about Nostriga, and you liked it, I assume, and you got purple pill too.
Well, I was sort of purple pill before Nostriga also, but it strengthened my conviction, if you will.
Okay, got it. Yeah, actually, I started Nostr 1.5 years ago with Damos, and I didn't like it, so I put it aside for more than 1 year, and then like 3 months ago, I discovered it again, and now I really like it.
Yeah.
But that's a discussion I actually had with Tanya. We talked about Nostriga and Honeybadger 2 like 3-4 episodes ago, and she is like much more a Nostr person than a Bitcoin person, but it's a harmony. It's like fitting perfectly together, I would say.
Yeah, and I think the thing that separates Riga for me from other conferences is that the open-mindedness of people and with intellectual honesty. It's not like open-mindedness like they're ETH heads or something, but there's very little of this. The more dogmatic talk that some Bitcoiners have, like you have to be a carnivore, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. There's very little of that in Riga. It's more open to new ideas, I'd say, while still staying. Most people are open to new ideas, but are still staying like Bitcoin only and very ethical in terms of intellectual honesty, like that. So I like it a lot. That's why I say it's like high signal to noise ratio, and they have this stage for NIMS, like the secret little stage where you're not allowed to film anything. I think that's a very good initiative. There are many people who can provide a lot of value to others that don't want to be seen or don't want to be, official. So that was a great addition. I think they started that last year. And the side events are of course great. There's a lot of stuff happening. I'm super proud that we got to do the Bitcoin Infinity Day party now this year, just before the Nostriga conference. So we had a very good time there, where a guy proposed to his wife during the night and everything. So like it was a beautiful night.
Nice.
Lots of fun.
I hope they were both Bitcoiners, not just one of them.
No, both.
Perfect. All right. Let's go into the main topic of this podcast. That's this book here.
Yeah.
The Inverse of Clone World.
Yeah.
And let's start with a meme, because honestly, I don't know the meme. Probably not everyone heard of it. It's August 21st, 2025. That's the launch of your book. It was the launch date of your podcast too, I think. 2 years ago.
2 years
or
earlier.
1 year.
Yeah.
And it's called Bitcoin Infinity Day inspired by the everything divided by 21 million meme.
Yeah. So this is something we started a couple of years back, and I just told the community about the idea that this should be a holiday, like if Americans write dates in a very weird way because they put the month first and the day after, so it's 8/21 and not 21/8. And 8/21 sort of looks like everything divided by 21 million. So that's why we figured that should be a Bitcoin holiday, and I announced it on Tone Vase podcast back in 2021, or back in and after that. The idea of Bitcoin Infinity Day and the hashtag Bitcoin Infinity Day sort of took off because like Adam Back tweeted about it and Michael Saylor tweeted about it, and I don't know who else tweeted about it, but pretty quickly it became a thing, and especially when Fractal Encrypt, the famous Bitcoin artist, decided to make an art piece from the meme, so that he released on Infinity Day, which is called the Bitcoin, the Infinity Keys, the private Infinity Keys and the public Infinity Keys, and he made 21 out of the private ones and 210 out of the public ones, and of the 21 private ones, he gave away 20 and auctioned away one of them. No, 8 out of 21 was auctioned out, and the other 210 public keys were just sold for a specific price that increased with each incremental block that passed during like 2.5 days, where we auctioned them out. And these are like little placards about this big with a golden key in the middle. Maybe you've seen them somewhere. If you search for Bitcoin Infinity Keys, you'll find them. So that sort of certainly fueled the momentum for the idea of Bitcoin Infinity Day. So now, and of course, I love seeing the equation wherever, every here and there. Maybe I should tell the story about the equation. I wrote an article once with the sentence, imagine everything there is and everything there ever will be divided by 21 million. And that article in turn got turned into a video that I made with Guy Swan and Joni Appelberg, the animator. And in that video, the equation was visualized in that way, like everything, the infinity sign over 21m. And that just took off. Like that's how this whole Infinity Day and everything else, just even the book. I sort of wrote the book because the meme was already taking off, so I sort of had to write a book about it. And it's just bizarre. Like it's the weirdest thing that ever happened to me. Like having that thing propagate the way it did, and now I have a subfolder in my everything divided folder on my computer with tattoos, and there's about 30 pictures of people around the world who have the equation tattooed into their bodies, which is just weird. But yeah, why not? I mean, lean in and ride along and be happy about it. That's the attitude I try to have towards this, and yeah. We'll see where it goes, but Bitcoin Infinity Day will be celebrated next year too. So
yeah. Nice, great. Now I understand it too. I bought here the book at the Honeybadger, and I don't know, did you gave me this or was it by Rockstar Dev?
Our Rockstar gave us a whole bunch of those to give out as bookmarks for the books.
Okay.
No, Rockstar has been so incredibly friendly and altruistic towards the cause. So big shout out to Rockstar Dev, and I'm extremely proud to say that during the Infinity Day party, Rockstar dubbed me an uncle, and he dubbed this guy Island, the guy who proposed to his girlfriend during the event. He's now dubbed an uncle too. So now there are 3 uncles, and it's us 3, and we have now established the Uncle Network. But there will be more people dubbed into uncles in the future, and Rockstar is the head chef there who decides who gets to be an uncle or not. No, and I absolutely love the guy. He's hilarious, and he's great for Bitcoin, I think, and he's done some marvelous things with BTC Pay Server. It's a fantastic project. So yeah, all props to Rockstar.
Yeah, definitely, and I think he's highly involved with the organization of the events too.
Yeah.
By the way, this is my second English episode in the new podcast format. The first one was just like 2 weeks ago with Greg, who is like a developer, has a BIP too, but wouldn't say he's a Bitcoin developer because he doesn't want to be on the same level like Peter Todd or other Bitcoin developers. And actually, I just remembered that he talked about a room you earlier mentioned, which is not recorded. And he talked about the Doomsday. Were you part of it, or have you heard of the Doomsday discussion on the Honeybadger?
No,
Okay.
I think I heard of it, but give me the TLDR on the Doomsday thing. What was that?
There was a discussion. It was not recorded. So everything we say is hearsay because I wasn't part of it too. But Greg told about it, and he said like it's kind of just started, and then it was a discussion about the doomsday, the end of the world. Not just the end of Bitcoin, the end of the world, like atomic bombs flying and stuff like this. And the thing is, I don't know much about it. I just know who was part of it, or like I know 2 people who were part of it. And I said, "Oh, I bet Peter Todd was part of it." And he said, "Yeah, he was the second guy." Adam Beck was the first guy, and I don't know who was else part of it because I haven't checked the agenda yet. But I think it was a really fun talk. I would love to see, but I will not see because it was not recorded.
Yeah. Well, you can talk about doomsdays all you want, but it's not very constructive, I think. Maybe it's constructive to talk about how to avoid a doomsday. I think Bitcoin is a pretty good tool for avoiding it.
Yeah, that's true. So now back to your book. I think that's the first time you're not the sole author. You can see it here. It's your name plus Luke de Wolf. Maybe you can say some words about this, how it came to it.
Yeah, well, for the last couple of books, I've always had a team around me and people who help me make the books as good as they can be. Like I have a fantastic editor called Mel, and I've had some other people also help me with the books. Different people with different books, and I had been lucky enough to have very good forward writers. Including Jeff Booth and Hodlonaut and Prince Philip and Raheem Tagesadigan, and now for this latest book it's Giacomo. So I'm very happy to have had those people on board with the projects as well. But Luke is the co-author of this book. I mean, I started writing the book, but then at some point we decided that this should be a joint venture, and he was fully committed to making the book as good as it could be and to have his input on it. So we, from the skeleton of a book that I wrote, we plowed through the book at least 3 times over and tried to make it better and better and better, and see what came out of it. And we have such a tight working relationship anyway with the pod, and a lot of the contents in the books are things that we learned from the pod and from the plethora of intelligent guests we had on. So the ideas sort of originate from our conversations with various people on the pod. And it's written in this. At some point we realized that the book sort of has a hero's journey structure to it. So we decided to deliberately make it that way. So it's sort of a hero's journey for the reader. you live in this normal world, but you realize that something is wrong with it. It's clownish, and Bitcoin is the call to adventure, but you don't respond to the call until you experience some trauma and have to like deep dive into yourself and see that only by changing yourself can you change the world. And that mostly means becoming a true Bitcoiner and living life in a more intellectually honest way, if you will. So the book, the TLDR on the book is about that. It's about how you change the world by changing yourself, and you make clown world go away by not participating in it. So, but yeah, I hope people like it. I mean, it's just been released, so I haven't seen. I've seen one review so far on the Mises Institute webpage, and I'm very happy about it. I think the people who have actually had the time to read the book yet, they all really like it, and I'm super proud of it. So I hope more people read it. I think if you're reading one Bitcoin book this year, it should definitely be this one, because this is probably the best book I've written, and much of that is thanks to Luke, and thanks to that we did it together and put so much effort into making it, into perfecting it. So like I wouldn't say it's perfect, but we did our best. It's the most humorous book yet, I think. It's toxic, and it's filled to the brim with bad dad jokes. So I hope people like it.
Yeah. So personally, I would say you should read 21 books per year, 21 Bitcoin books. So this is one of many, many Bitcoin books I'm reading this year. But let's say for this podcast that I haven't read the book, because I think most of the listeners, if not all, haven't read it yet, because it's only less than 4 weeks old.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, if I'm not totally wrong, the name of your podcast is Freedom Footprint Show, right? And it's with Luke.
Well, it used to be, but we changed the name just this Infinity Day to to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. But these first 2 years, it was called the Freedom Footprint Show, and that's how the book starts here. Like we dedicate the book to all our guests on the Freedom Footprint Show, because they had so much influence on how the book turned out.
Yeah, I will put it in the show notes. And do you think this is the best book you ever written?
Yes, of course. There's recency bias, so it's the latest book I've written, and it's the one I'm traveling the world shilling at the moment. But answering as objectively as I can, yes, I do think it's the best book I've written. I do think it's the most I put more serious effort into this than anything else. Not to say that I didn't put serious effort into the older books, but this one is I've cranked it up a notch. Let's just say that.
Yeah, you wrote it in a book that you started yourself. Then Luke came. Then he gave you suggestions. At some point of time, you said, "Luke, why don't we put you as a co-author on the book?" Then you said everything you write as we, it's you two. Everything you write as I, it's your personal story you've written before. So I think this is a really good way of putting it, because otherwise there will be people who are saying, "Oh, wow, I'm totally confused."
And also, like in the beginning, when Luke when we just had the idea of having Luke as one of the editors, it's like, yeah, he can give a shit about the book to a certain extent, but what if I make him if I invite him to be the actual co-author, then he will, like, it's all about incentives, right, and skin in the game. So when he was that, then he needed to be proud of it too, and he needed to do his best to make it the best we could, and we've had loads of fun writing the book. It's been a long and tedious project, but we both enjoyed it immensely. And so I started writing the thing in December, or I always mention this. It's kind of hard to realize when you start writing a book, because like when is the first? I know that you don't start it when you write the first letter on the keyboard. It's not when you press the first letter on the keyboard. Because you have to have, there's an idea phase before that where you sort of think about what a new book could be and everything. And I think most of the book is written by just walking and thinking about what the book should be about, or having some ideas. So it's hard to say where we started, but if you count from the first letter written on the page, I started writing it in December, and Luke came on board just a couple of weeks after that, and we've been working on it ever since, every day for up until June or something, when it was finalized, and we sent it to print and got the proof copies and whatnot, set up the web page, bitcoininfinity.com, accepting Bitcoin payments and all of that, making all of that work, and yeah, this is the end result, and I hope people like it.
December 2023, I have to add here, until June 2024, it's like 7 months, which is really quick to write a book. But as it's not your first book, that's maybe then normal. Like I can say it, I'm writing on a book too, but I haven't written, I've written some words, but it will not be published in the next 2 years probably, because it will be my first book. But what I really like is, if you look in the foreword by Giacomo, he gave you 21 reasons why you should read the book. Yeah. And for example, here, point 5, this book contains quite timeless analysis, yet it fits very nicely in the already pretty large and fast-growing Svanholm section you almost certainly already created in your personal library. I did. And that's something I am doing with my podcast too. So what I'm creating here is kind of timeless analysis. It's like signal over noise. It's like quality content. And you can watch, I would say, 99% of my podcasts either today or in 3 years, and it wouldn't change that much. So I'm not talking about anything price related. I don't talk about if there's China a sack of rice which falls down with a Bitcoin logo.
Or catch the game last night, like
yeah,
you know the meme.
Yeah. All right. So I think I don't know. Maybe if I'm allowed, I put 21 points here under the show notes. Then everyone knows why they should read the book.
My favorite is point 14.
Yeah. Yes. This book is 0 calorie, carbon neutral. I doubt that actually. Gluten free and vegan.
No, but he says, as far as I know.
Yeah, but printing a book is not carbon neutral, unfortunately.
No. Well, that is a very, very debatable word, if it has any meaning at all. Because what is carbon neutral? Like everything's connected, man.
Sure, like if you're breathing, it's not carbon neutral. So should everyone stop to breathe?
Yeah, well, that's what some people want, it seems.
Point 15. This book can be read by people with blue hair without life-threatening effects. So I think what you mentioned is like the book is covered with jokes, sometimes with dad jokes. Like if I think about how many skateboards do you need to put in a light bulb?
Yeah. Yeah, don't spoil that.
Yes, I will not. Okay, so let's look at the agenda, because you have I don't know, because there are no numbers, but let's say you have 12 chapters.
Yeah, 12 chapters.
Oh, nice. And you talk about different topics like incentives, wokeism, clown world, slay your heroes, what I personally like if I look at some people in the Bitcoin space. And like, would you say it is a red line? It's a storyline going. So do you have to read first chapter 1 before you read chapter 7?
Yeah, it has a continuity to it, definitely. You can the chapters are standalone, so they can be read like articles also. But like to get the most out of the book, it should be read from from beginning to end because it definitely has that hero's journey kind of structure to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a personal favorite as a chapter?
A lot of them. I think my favorite would be one of the later chapters called "That Which You Can Do Without." I really like that chapter, but it's hard to pick a specific chapter because I like all of them. I made this Pendulum chapter into a talk, and I'm gonna give that talk about a couple of other times because, and that ties into Hill to Die on picking and Slay Your Heroes as well. Yeah, I wouldn't say a favorite chapter, more like I have favorite ideas in the book. I like the whole "we are all Satoshis" idea that you are your bitcoins and what that implies. I mean, I've been talking about that in previous books as well, but I'm sort of doing a deep dive in this one. Yeah, but if I have to pick a chapter, it's probably "That Which You Can Do Without."
Yeah.
But I like them all. I like the Mind Over Matter chapter also, which is a bit of that's probably the hardest chapter to read because it's a deep dive about the nature of reality and your mind and stuff, and it contains a lot. But yeah, hopefully it gets people thinking. That's always been my goal to like poke people into thinking something they haven't thunk before. That's
Yeah.
that's what I want to do.
So let's dive into the first chapter, or like the first I pick, and that is wokeism. I live in Germany. I live in Berlin, and wokeism is really huge in Germany. It's like one of the main topics people speak about, or like the highly controversial things. And I have my own point of view regarding wokeism. And if you follow me or anyone on Twitter, then you will know what it is, because I put a reference on a new court order. There's a German podcast. I don't know if you heard about it. It's Hoss and something. And they said in their podcast that a man who identifies as a woman wanted to go into a female-only fitness club. So this person sued the fitness club, and then a government official wrote to the fitness club. They have to pay this person a number of money because they will not allow this person in their club. Then they talked about this topic. Then it went to court. The court order was delete everything about this. You can't say to a woman that this person is a man. Doesn't matter if this person has a penis or not. You can't say this. If you do, you have to pay 25,000 euro every time you say it or tweet it or speak about it. And my remarks, I thought we have like an objective truth. Either you are a female or male. I'm not a professor. I can't say any other genders than those two. I was raised with two genders. Maybe there are more now. I don't want to argue about this. I don't know it. It's not my topic. But if a person has still a male or female genitalia, I don't know, the DNA or the body says it is either this or this, and you can't say this, then there's something wrong with the current climate in the country, I would say.
Yeah, I like there are so many examples of this nowadays, and regardless of where you stand on the topic, like the obvious solution to all of this, where everyone wins, is private property. Because, for instance, in this establishment you were talking about, if they were allowed themselves to select who they wanted to allow into their property or not, or onto their property, then the problem would go away. The problem is the interventionism. The problem is that the state and the court system and whatnot has a say at all in who gets allowed into someone's someone's swimming pool. I mean, that should be up to the owner of that place. And I think this is this is what sort of the book describes also, that it's the politicization of everything that skews the incentives and make all these weird effects happen. Because I mean, a woman might want to go into what did you call the place, like a bath house or like
It was a fitness club, a gym.
a fitness club? Yeah. So if I bet there are women who want trans men to be in their fitness club. There's probably a small market segment that wants that. So then if the selection is, if there's if you yourself as the customer can select between different gyms that have different rules, you can go to the one that suits your needs best. And this goes for the trans man as much as it does for the woman not wanting to be in the same dressing room as the trans man. And the free market solves for all of this if done properly. But the point is that as soon as there's some interventionism that skews the incentives, sets the price signals wrong, and misallocates resources, and at the end, that always leads to the state becoming bigger, everything becoming more politicized, and it grows like a cancer on society. And we end up in this confused place where no one knows what a woman is anymore, and no one knows what racism is anymore, and no one knows how to differentiate between climate and weather, and like how certainly there can be a problem with the climate according to some, but assigning a politician to solve the problem is a bit like assigning a pedophile to babysit your kids. Like it's so weird. But yeah, there's a lot in the book about describing why these phenomena happen, and how you simply get away from them by not caring about them, and not giving into it, not playing those games. And that can be hard when you can be sued for large amounts of money, when you just want to like implement your own rules on your own property. So the question should arise, like, if I run this gym, if I own the gym, and someone else can decide who I can and cannot let into the gym, do I really own the gym? And it's the same with like any property. If you own a house and you have to pay a property tax every year, do you really own the house? Or does someone else own a house and allow you to live there under certain conditions? Like, if you own something, you ought to be able to decide over that thing. And if you have to ask permission, or if you have to pay a fee, or if you have to follow someone else's rule, then you do not properly own the thing. And Bitcoin fixes this, because Bitcoin is a thing that other people can try to implement rules and can try to tell you what to do and what not to do with your Bitcoin, but they can't have them because they're in your head. You are the one in control of your private keys, which means it's about the only thing in the world that you can actually own, and that you know that you own them, because no one else can take them away, and no one can implement their rules on top of your ownership, so to speak. So yeah, I believe that no person on earth, like this is the core of the thing. I believe in the non-aggression principle. I don't think anyone in the world has the right to impose their view of ethics and morals onto anyone else. So forcing people to do this or that is always wrong, and it should always be viewed through that lens. Every decision made by any politician should always be viewed through that lens. And that sort of puts the very notion of democracy into question, because how does a popularity contest make theft more ethical? And I don't think it does. So I think property rights is way more important than any other layer on top, even freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is pointless unless you have absolute property rights in the foundation. Yeah, that's my little rant on the topic.
Yeah, the problem is, I think until 5 or maybe 10 years ago, it was totally okay to say we have a women's only fitness club. Then the rules changed that you can define yourself as a woman or a man. And I don't know the objective rules. Like, when can I say I'm a woman? Like, if I want to, I don't know what the current law is in Germany.
Totally arbitrary. And what we've forgotten is how women fought tooth, nail, and claw to get separate bathrooms 100 years ago. This was a women's movement thing. They wanted the separate bathrooms. They wanted and the separate toilets and whatnot. So this is something women fought for, and now they're getting it taken away because of some illogical brain loop that doesn't compute. But as I said, I think the only way out of that is to return to a state of stronger property rights. That's the directional solution, because every women is categorized as one group, and you can always, and then trans women is another group, and you can always subdivide these groups into smaller and smaller units, and when you do that ad infinitum, the unit you end up with is always the individual. So it's always the individual rights that matter, and group rights don't matter.
Yeah, let's move to the next chapter, and this is actually this here on the cover of the book, Clown World. What is the clown world?
I mean, it's the stuff we've been talking about. It's when the world gets so politicized, and the media gets to this, which is in itself very politicized, but via subsidies and state-funded media and whatever. They paint a very weird picture of the world and act like if everyone agrees with them that this is the thing. Climate goals, for instance, are always referred to as the climate goals in public service media. So they act like if these decisions made in a boardroom somewhere are absolute, and that everyone has to follow suit and has to tag along. But you can have your own opinion on stuff, and it's not up to them to decide what people think about them. But they act as if that's the case. And the clown world is anything that is not based in reality, but it has emerged out of decade after decade of skewed incentives. So I'd say during the latter part of the 90s, we were pretty close as a human race to rid ourselves of sexism and racism and stuff like that. That wasn't really a big thing, and people in general weren't very racist. And it's only when this overcompensation thing happened that all of a sudden women were supposed to be better than men, and and you were allowed to be racist towards white people but not any other skin color. Then the whole anti-racism thing is just the flip side of the same coin. So I think anything anti is just the same. We don't want anti-racism or anti-fascism or anti-anything. We want to get rid of the bad the bad idea and the bad incentive structure. So I think any moral person will treat any other human being as their equals in terms of equal in front of the law. I mean, that's the only place where I view equality as a good thing, is equality towards the law. I think an optimal planet or an optimal human society would have the same rules apply to every person. And that is, how do you achieve that? Well, you have as few rules as possible. And if there's one human right that can be applicable to all people at all times, regardless of where or when they were born, it's the right to be left alone. If everyone followed that rule, and left each other alone and didn't attack one another, then we'd have no problems. We'd just have voluntary cooperation, consensual interactions, free markets, and good stuff. It's the it's the aggressive stuff that is bad, and that includes taxes and inflation, because at the end of the day, they're done under gun threat. Like, if you don't pay your taxes, men with guns will come and take you away. At the end of the line, they will come and throw you in prison. So the closer we can get to a reality where people can actually defend their property, the better. And Bitcoin is first and foremost a tool for defending your property rights, because it's unconfiscatable. It's very much harder to take someone's Bitcoin than it is to take someone's house or someone's car or even someone's kids. But their Bitcoin are hard to take, like because they live inside their owner's heads, and there's no way of knowing how many the owner has, like how many any other person has. So I think that Bitcoin is an ultimate noise removal tool in that sense. It's not necessarily a signal in itself, but it does remove the noise from your life if used properly.
I think there are only 3 possibilities to get the private key of Bitcoin. It's either free will, it's torture, or it's death.
How death? How do you get them through death? Like, you can kill another Bitcoiner, but you won't necessarily get the private key.
No, I mean, then you obviously will not get the private key, but you will kill the person to do something with the Bitcoin he has. So regarding if politicians want you to do something, like paying taxes, etc., either they are giving it to you freely. For example, that's what I'm talking about, the Bitcoin Amsterdam. Saxony got 50,000 Bitcoin and sold it worth of 3 billion from one criminal. And in January 2024, he gave the private key willingly, because probably to reduce his prison sentence. So that is number one.
So it wasn't willingly. It wasn't willingly then. It was under threat.
It was.
There was a condition.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's voluntary, but it's not consensual. So if I put a gun to your head and I say, "Give me all your money," you voluntarily give it up, but there's no consent. Like, you're not doing it consensually, you're doing it voluntarily. So there's a difference there. And I think, like, the thing is with private keys that, yes, you can kill the person and then the Bitcoin goes away, or you can think that, but you don't know if anyone else also has the private key. So it's impossible for anyone to know how many Bitcoins another person has. It is also impossible to prove that that person is the only one with access to those Bitcoins, because you can't prove a negative. So all this chain analysis bullshit is also completely morally weird, because there's no way of proving a negative. You can't prove that theoretically everyone on Earth could have access to all the Bitcoins. You simply can't know if that's not the case. So theoretically, the private keys of every Bitcoin address that have ever existed could exist in all the brains on Earth simultaneously. So how do you disprove that? So that's in my opinion, that's where it gets so weird and it gets so fucking magic, because like, you can't logically argue your way out of that. You can torture a person and he gives you a private key, you get some Bitcoin or access to some Bitcoin, but you don't know if that was all the Bitcoin. You cannot know that. You don't know if someone else doesn't also have the access to those private keys. You don't know anything. Like, and this is the thing. You can make a very well-informed guess, but still there's a lot of things that can't be proven, that are, like, we pretend that they can be, just as we pretend that you own Bitcoin if you own a Bitcoin ETF thing or shares in a Bitcoin company, but you don't. Like, not your keys, not your coins. You don't own the Bitcoin until you know the private key. That's just fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
And torture doesn't work, shown by a big country. And so, sure, you can torture someone, but even then you don't know if he's telling the truth or not. And you can't prove anything with torture. Let's go to the next chapter. It's called slay your heroes.
Yeah.
And there are some famous Bitcoiners. I think it started with Satoshi Nakamoto. His white paper is directly hanging over me. He is one of my heroes, and I don't want to slay him, but I want to slay some other heroes. And like, what is the meaning of your chapter in this regard? Because I don't know, in Germany we have a hero for some of the people, then we have with Michael Saylor another hero for many Bitcoiners.
Yeah. Let's put it like this: like, if a fisherman catches a beautiful big fish, it's the fish that is beautiful, and not necessarily the fisherman. And the same is true for ideas. So we can celebrate. I think that this is sort of the call to action in this chapter, is that we ought to celebrate good ideas rather than the people behind them, because people are people. Human beings are flawed creatures that may be brilliant in about something and then have a very bad idea about something else. So. And this is what the Bitcoin community has done so well over the past 10 years, is pointing out when people have bad intentions, when people are malicious actors, and when people simply have bad ideas, and when people have flawed arguments. The Bitcoin community has been relentless in like pointing that out and slaying their heroes, if you will. So, and in this chapter, I even make an argument that we might have to slay Satoshi at some point, because like I think there's a danger to putting Satoshi on too much of a pedestal and making this a messianic figure and making it into more of a cult thing. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can arrive at the Bitcoin being the optimal form of money and like something with the most important fight to fight in our lives by using pure logic, and you don't need any of this cultish behavior or you don't need to put anyone on a pedestal really in order to just see that resistance to replicability online was a discovery rather than an invention, and it cannot be replicated. This is it, and it unlocks ways of interacting between human beings that are just superior to everything that preceded it. Yeah, I don't think you don't necessarily need heroes for that. So yeah, I guess, as I said, the call to action is like celebrate the ideas, don't celebrate the person. Well, celebrate the person too, but not in the same way.
I think that's an optimal state, and I think it's human nature to put a person in front of everything. Like, look at Apple and Steve Jobs and the iPhone. Steve Jobs didn't engineer the iPhone. He had maybe the idea for it, and then he had great engineers and product developers and like thousands of people. But everyone is saying the iPhone is Steve Jobs' idea, and he was the inventor. Then you have Bill Gates and Microsoft. So I think everywhere you can put one person behind it, but he was not the only person.
No, and I mean, people come and go, but the ideas stay. I mean, everyone knows Pythagoras' theorem, but no one knows who Pythagoras was, like, or very few people do anyway. And even fewer knew what kind of personality Pythagoras was, and like whether he was a nice person or not. So, but the idea lives on because it's such a great idea, because it described an aspect of reality in a perfect way. So, and I think it's the same with Satoshi's equation and how Bitcoin works and how Bitcoin has emerged out of I see more like something emerging out of a simpler set of rules. So it sort of evolves over time and becomes what it is now, for better or worse. I mean, Bitcoin never needed to be perfect. It just needed to be good enough to last forever. And that's the hope. That's what we think we have seen here. It's yet to be proven, and it needs to be proven over and over again. But so far, so good. TikTok next block, and my bets are on that Bitcoin will survive, even the spam attack and everything.
Definitely. I think it's more of a time frame. Like, sure, Pythagoras died 1,000 years ago. If we go 1,000 years in the future, no one knows who Steve Jobs is. But maybe if an iPhone will not exist in 1,000 years, probably. But no one will know Satoshi Nakamoto like we do right now because we lived at the same time. But everyone will still know Bitcoin, I think. So maybe it's a time issue. And we know the person because we lived in the same century or decade.
Yeah, but I think like even even if you came up with an idea yourself and the idea takes off, like you should remember that the idea is the important thing and not you. Like that's why stay humble, stack sats is so true, right? And it's I guess it's hard to be humble if success is coming your way, but I still think it's important for people to remember that what propels us forward is ideas and not necessarily people.
The thing is, Satoshi Nakamoto didn't have the idea. Like Adam Beck had the idea of proof of work, and Satoshi Nakamoto put all of those great ideas together to
Yeah.
build Bitcoin. So the question is then, do you like the idea, like the person who had the idea, or the person who put those ideas together to a working product?
Yeah, but putting ideas together is another idea. Like that's also an
Yes.
idea. Like I would
Yes.
categorize that as an idea too. Like, uh, I mean, Pythagoras built his equation on ideas too. Some person would have to um, have invented what addition was and what the square of something was. Like that would have to be had been invented before Pythagoras could invent anything or discover anything. So yeah, ideas are always built on top of more fundamental ideas, I think.
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking about the whole idea discussion regarding electricity. Like there was someone who had the idea, and then you had someone else who actually put up the light bulb, and it worked.
Yeah.
But we don't want to spoiler too much, and we crossed the 1 hour mark. Maybe if you like one last chapter, we can talk about, and you can decide which one.
Uh, yeah, I'd say the yeah, we talked a lot about Clown World and the Slayer Heroes, and even I'd say Hill to Die on picking is sort of adjacent to that too. Like pick the right fight to fight, but and Pendulum also, which is about how ideas just yeah. I guess I could go into Pendulum a bit. It's mainly about the action and reaction of the reactionary nature of humankind. That what I've seen in a lot of Bitcoiners is that as soon as they realize that the government is lying about almost everything, they immediately cling on to the to the most popular conspiracy theory, and they think that the very opposite of what the government is saying is true. And I think that's just as lazy. I'd say that if you if you do the opposite of what the government mandates, you'd probably be better off than if you follow all the government mandates. But there's probably an even more optimal way in the middle somewhere, and it goes for a lot of things. And also, I think there are a couple of things, a couple of concepts in Bitcoin that have very specific purposes for Bitcoin, but may not be very useful anywhere else. And one of them is proof of work. And this is sort of a controversial point. There seems to be this theme among Bitcoiners that proof of work is what makes a good person, and that if you just work hard, then success will come to you and you will be rewarded somehow. And I think even in Bitcoin, it should have been called proof of results rather than proof of work, because I think people have very different ways of working and what they describe as work at all, and that you can get to results without necessarily working too much. So proof of work for the sake of proof of work is a little too close to Marxism for my taste. It sounds like the labor theory of value, you know, that if you dig a great big hole in your garden, and no one asked for it, I don't think anyone will thank you. And I think this is one of the big problems with fiat currency, that they fund governments going into debt to fund all sorts of grandiose projects that no one really asked for. So I think we ought to promote proof of results a little more. Yeah, I guess that's a short version of that chapter.
Great. Like for probably the German natives, pendulum is meaning pendle. So like this, the old clocks with the pendulum.
Yeah.
And like ticking and TikTok next block. Probably it's coming from there.
No, well, it's more about how we go from one extreme to the other. So when people realize that veganism is bullshit, they go to carnivory, for instance. That's one of the extreme swings. And I actually know a person who was a vegan a strict vegan for 14 years, and he switched on a dime to complete carnivore. So he ate nothing but plants for 14 years, and now he eats nothing but meat, which means that if you zoom out a bit, he's actually an omnivore, because on a long enough time frame, he has a pretty balanced diet. It's just that he ate all the vegetables first and all the meat later.
I would say it's radicalism. Like if you're left wing or right wing, you're both radical. And in Germany, at least right now, we have two radical parties. The lefts and the rights in Germany, the AfD, and now not only the Linke, but also BSW, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht. And now it's interesting to see that you could switch instantly from right-wing AfD to leftist BSW. And now they're already talking about coalitions. And that's like the opposite.
But this really
radical.
it isn't. No. And this is like they call Nazism a right-wing extremism, like in fascism, right-wing extremism. But I say it's all extreme statism. Like they're two sides of the same coin. Or the thing these people have in common is that they want to control other people. So that's what we need to get away from. Like reduce the size of the state, of the entity, the criminal entity that has the monopoly on violence in society. That's the only way out of it.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I said on Twitter like 1 month ago, my theory, there will be a collision between the right-wing and the left-wing party. And then I was highly attacked that's bullshit, that can't happen. Those are on a different spectrum. And they didn't understood that it's just a label. If you're on the left side or on the right side, it doesn't mean that you're actually 1,000 meters away from each other. You can be sitting right next to each other. You're both radical parties, so it makes sense in some kind of way to work together to get to your radical version.
It's more of a circle than a line, right? If you go to the far ends, they sort of connect.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Great. As I said, I don't want to spoiler, or we don't want to spoiler everything in the book. Read the book. I think we gave you a lot to think about and a lot to read it. Like, I think it's always good to talk about a book, but it's better to read the actual book. And as always, I will briefly summarize, and you can think about any topic you want to add or say it's what we talked about in essence. And it started with like how we met, Honeybadger 2019, but then we were both like 1 month ago in Riga at the Honeybadger 2024. It was a great conference, like a bit big Bitcoin meetup, just professionalized. Then there was before the Nostriga, the Nostr conference or unconference, sponsored by Jack Dorsey. I got purple pilled, not orange pilled, by Nostr. I used it for 1.5 years, but now I'm trying to use it more. Now I got finally the meme, August 21st, like Bitcoin Infinity Day. If you don't understand it, just go back to minute 10 or something, where Knut told this story. And yeah, then we dived in some chapters of One Divided by Clown World, or the inverse of Clown World. And I picked some interesting chapters, like we talked about Walkerson, then Clown World per se, Slay Your Heroes, Hill to Die on Picking, without really mentioning it. Pendulum was like right now the last chapter Knut talked about. And yeah, like I think probably about the last 70 minutes we talked about topics which were covered in every chapter, probably. Not sure if we didn't cover anything in a small, which was not in one chapter. But if you want to know if the answer is true, read the book. And yeah, that's about it. Do you
Great.
want to add something?
Well, can add a shameless chill. You should all go and follow and like and subscribe to the Bitcoin Infinity show. And you go to bitcoininfinity.com and you'll find our store where you can find our books and all the Infinity swag and whatever. And also a link to the pod. So follow us everywhere. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve, you should follow us on Nostr, where we post everything one day ahead of time. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the book. If anyone reads the book, like please leave a review or post something. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. So, and thank you, Philip, for having me on.
On Amazon, or where do you want to get your...
Preferably on Amazon. Getting reviews on Amazon is nice, of course, but there are plenty other sites like Goodreads, for instance, or or anywhere on social media, whatever works for you. I mean, it is what it is, the internet these days.
Yeah, perfect. I will put everything in the show notes. And that's it for today. As always, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, then subscribe to the podcast or this YouTube channel here. Let's explore the Bitcoin rabbit hole together. Thank you, Knut. Thank you for listening and see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Wenn dir die Folge gefallen hat, freue ich mich, wenn du den Kanal abonnierst und der Folge einen Daumen nach oben gibst.